Alrighty, there we go. Welcome back to another thrilling installment and hopefully technical issue and drama-free installment, now that I've said that, of course, it is doomed from the outset, of Cyteen by CJ Cherryh. Previously on, there is currently an ongoing process on the part of Ari Younger to basically assume control of Reseune. She is like 17 going on 18. And in order to facilitate this, because she feels that her and those she cares about's lives are in danger, she activates Base 1 to its full capabilities of when, equivalent to when Ari Senior was at the height of her power. Now this means this means a lot of things. She can see basically every communication transmission or order given through the Reseune system overall. So she knows what other people are doing. The system has a warning note in there from Ari Senior saying, hey, be careful with this. This will give you valuable information, but that doesn't do you any good if other people know that you can get that information. So keep it on the down low, obviously. Let's see. There's something else that happened that was somewhat important. Oh, right. I forgot to put this in the stream description. Grant is visiting Jordan, so they are permitting that. But there is a lot of suspicious movement occurring with the Paxers, and there is a concern that Jordan Warwick is somehow involved with them because his name keeps coming up. So she puts Justin through a psych probe, and she's a better operator at that than Gerard Nye is, as Justin can attest. He comes out of that less beaten, battered, and bruised. She also runs a bit of a minor intervention on him to keep him from basically having panic attacks anytime he's in her house. Nothing more than that, as I recall. And she tells him, hey, I am going to need to put Grant under probe because I need to know what's going on. I'm warning you now. I will give you a transcript of whatever, of whatever I do or whatever I ask, as I will for you. But that's kind of the way it's got to be right now. She is at the moment also getting her younger youth friends, like Amy, into the fold. She's basically circling the wagons at this point, getting people in her fold deeper into the fold where she can keep them safe from whatever's going on. We don't have a terribly clear picture at the moment. It will be made clearer. I don't consider that a spoiler. I consider that a obvious conclusion to reach. Because CJ Cherryh is not a hack writer. Full stop. She's just not. She's just not that kind. Anything else salient? Oh, yeah. So before we start, anybody on the Discord now probably knows that there was a bit of drama over the last couple days. So Artemis by Andy Weir and Death's End by Xixin Liu, my live narrations of those have had to be taken down. Now, I did not know that there was a warning out against Artemis. I did not receive an email to that effect until after it got taken down. This was done in 2 batches of 5 by a group called MarkScan, and I am still in the process of learning what exactly they're about, but it seems like they are copyright vultures of some kind. I just wish I understood what their end was in all that, what they served to gain monetarily from that action. Death's End also has been taken down. That by me, because they sent me warnings, and they said, hey, take these down. So, because Artemis was taken down, and I didn't do it myself, because I never got a warning that I saw, I now have 2 copyright strikes. So I need to keep an eye on things. It is a 3 strikes you're out system. This was always a possibility. I'm in the process of making sure I have backups of everything, which isn't too bad. It's basically anything that I've done in the last 4 months, I think, or couple months. Once I have that, we'll be ready to go in case the worst happens. More or less. I'll have to set up playlists all over again, which will be fun. But anyway, I've got to keep an eye on this. As of now, I have both Artemis and Death's End up and available in MP3 form. Read, there will not be any of the background images or cover art, sadly, on those. They are unedited otherwise. The Artemis ones are, quote, edited, unquote, in the sense that they are raw recorded material when I hit the record button, which is not the same as hitting the going live button. We are on going live. Typically, I hit the record button right when I'm going to start reading. I do not have those for Death's End. They are around somewhere, but they are labeled purely with a date and nothing else. So I have to go and find where those are, where in the sequence they appear, so I can do that. Anyway, they're on the Discord. They are pinned. You can get at them there, if you care. If you don't care, don't worry about it. The main reason I converted them to MP3 is because in terms of video size, they're freaking huge. And I don't think anyone wants to deal with that. So, what I'll also do at some point, and I keep saying I'll do this, but I kind of want feedback, is I'll upload zip files of the cover art that I've acquired, just of the JPEGs, PNGs, what have you, of the cover art that I've got for some of these, and I can upload those for anyone who cares. They've all been gained just through basic, simple Google image searches, to be honest, so it's not that big a deal. Anyway, you can it's all out there. Like, I'm not getting it from anywhere special. Like, and the covers of the physical editions that I have are no different than the ones I'm finding there. If I did have one that was different, I would find it and take a picture and add it if I had to. Anyway, with that out of the way, hopefully we don't have further drama. I'm going to have to watch it like a hawk for the next 3 months. Strictly speaking, actually, it's 88 days to make sure it doesn't happen again. It's been a few years since this happened. Echopraxia was the last one. But at least with that one, I had forewarning. Anyway, that too is also available on the Discord. Well, I'm glad you're enjoying Derpy Shark. If/when I wind up doing, if I have to make a new channel, I am pretty much set to do that. It will not be a great inconvenience to do. So it'll be manageable. Alrighty, with that, I think that's it. Alright, let's rock and roll. We're going to finish up, I think this is chapter 13 of Cyteen. I believe... Come on. Flip pages, Mo Gooder. Oh my lord, I can't... There it is. Yes, chapter 13. How long is chapter 14? Chapter 14 is a pretty big boy. That I think is like 80 pages. A little less than 80, 70 something. I'll probably have to split that in half too, so we won't finish this until next week, but we will be finished this month for sure. Alrighty. Alright. let's get to it. Let me slurp down some water and we'll get it done. Six. The airport lobby was mostly deserted. Reseune Air's regular flights all departed, the passengers that came and went in this small public area of Reseune all on their way to Novgorod or Svetlansk or Gagaringrad. There was the usual presence of airport security, and a handful of black-uniformed Reseune security down from the house, waiting to meet their comrades in from Planis. The same as he was there for Grant, Justin thought. Nothing more. But Florian had gone off into the deplaning area he had no admittance to, and had assured him, "Sarah Amy Carnath is just across the room, sir, and so is Sam Whiteley, both friends of Sarah's. I've asked them to keep their distance, so if you do get in trouble here, they have a pocket comm and they can advise me, but I'm on the regular security band." This with a touch near the small button Florian wore next to his key card. "I'll be monitoring security. If anything should happen, go along with it and trust we can unravel it." The two watchers kept to their side of the lounge, a big-boned, square-faced youth who was already huge, hard muscle, and a way of sitting that said he was no accountant. Whiteley was a Reseune name, but from the town, not the house. Justin remembered seeing him in Ari's crowd. And Julia Carnath's girl, Amy, Ari's frequent shadow, thin and bookish and sharp, very sharp by her reputation among the staff. Dennis Nye's niece, and a boy who looked like he could bend pipe bare-handed, a combination that would give security pause, at least, security tending to abhor noisy incidents. He felt safer with the kids there. Damn, he had lived this long to be protected by children. To be co-opted by a child who was the same age as himself when he had fallen victim to her predecessor. That was the peculiarly distressing thing. Not that he had a chance, taking on Ari in the prime of her abilities, but that her successor reached out so easily and just swept him in and put him in this situation, with Grant on the other side of those doors, likely wondering what Ari's personal bodyguard was doing, involving himself in the baggage check and in the body search Florian was bound to insist on. Grant would start with a little worry in his look, an initial realization that something was amiss, and quietly go more and more inward, terrified, going through the motions because in that situation there was nothing to gain, nothing to do, except hope to get through to his partner and hope that his partner was not already in detention. Florian had refused to take so much as a note. "I'm sorry, sir, I have to follow regulations here. I'll get him through as quickly as I can." Not knowing what was toward, not knowing what could have happened to his partner, and that partner waiting to tell him. God, to tell him he was going up to Ari's floor, that he was going to have to take a probe, that it was all right, because his partner said so, of course, having just had one himself. He thought it remarkable that he could sit through this nightmare, sit watching the guards in their small group, the two kids talking, listening to the ordinary sounds from the baggage department that meant they were active back there, probably lining up the luggage on the tables where Reseune security would go through it and check everything item by item. Nothing cursory on this one, he figured. Examination right down to the integrity of seams on one's shaving kit or the contents of opaque bottles. He was used to packing for security checks.
No linings, everything in transparent bottles, transparent bags, as little clothing as possible, all documents in the briefcase only, and those all loose leaf, so they could feed through the scanners. Take sweaters. Shirts rumpled untidily in searches, and security always questioned double stitching and double thick collars. He stretched his feet out in front of him, leaned back, and tried to relax, feeling the old panic while the minutes went by like hours.
Sure, it's all right, Grant. I'm sure I wasn't tampered with. Like hell. But what have we got else? Where can we go except hope Ari's reincarnation isn't going down Ari's path? If she's got those notes, damn it, she knows what her predecessor meant to do with me. She can change it, or she can finish it the way the first Ari would have, make me into what the first Ari planned. Whatever that is. I thought that once that might have been the best thing, if Ari had lived. If there ever was a design. Now it's too imminent. Now it's not what Ari could have given me. I'm the adult. I've got my own work. I've got my own agenda. And Grant, my God, Grant, what have I dragged him into? What can I do?
The doors opened, and Grant came out, carrying his own briefcase, Florian behind him with the luggage. "Bus, sir," Florian said, waving a hand toward the doors as Justin stood up and started toward Grant. Their paths in that direction intersected. "I'm certainly glad to see you," Grant said. He had that slightly dazed look that went with transoceanic flight and a complete turnabout of hours. Justin threw an arm about him, patted him on the back as they walked.
How was the trip?
"Oh, the ground part was fine. Jordan and Paul, everything's all right with them. I really enjoyed the time. Just talk, really. A lot of talk." Doors opened behind them, and Grant's attention shifted instantly, a glance back, a loss of his thought. The doors ahead opened automatically, one set and the others, onto the portico where the bus waited. "Are we all right?" Grant asked.
"Ari's being sure we are,"
Justin said, keeping a hand on Grant's back, cautioning him against stopping. Florian put the luggage right up onto the bus deck and got up after, giving a sharp instruction to the driver to start up as Grant stepped up onto the deck, and Justin followed him on the steps.
"We've 10 more passengers,"
the driver objected. "I have a priority," Florian said. "Get aboard, sir." Justin crowded a step higher as Grant edged his way past, as Florian shut the door himself. The driver started the motor and threw them into motion. "You can come back down after the others," Florian said, standing by the driver as Grant sat down on the first bench and Justin sat down beside him. "What are we doing?" Grant asked quietly, reasonably.
"We're quite all right,"
Justin said, and took Grant's wrist and pressed it, twice, with his fingers where the pulse was. Confirmation. He felt Grant relax a little then. Florian came back and sat down across from them. "Catlin will hold the elevator for us," Florian said. "Our security at the doors will be just a little confused when the bus comes without the rest of the passengers. There's nothing really wrong. They'll probably move to ask the driver what's going on, and we just walk right on through. Absolutely nothing wrong with what we're doing, sir, only we just don't need a jurisdictional dispute or an argument over seniority. If we're stopped, absolutely there's no problem. Don't worry, don't be nervous. We can move very smoothly through it if you'll just let me do the talking and be ready to take my cues. Ideally, we'll walk straight to the doors, through, down to the elevator. Catlin and I have double-teamed senior security many a time." "That'll take us up to Wing 1 residencies," Grant said quietly.
That's where we're going," Justin said. "There's a little boundary dispute going on. Ari's coordinating this through the house system so we don't end up with Gerard."
"Fervently to be wished," Grant said with a shaky little sigh, and Justin patted him on the knee.
"Terrible homecoming. I'm awfully sorry."
"It's all right," Grant murmured, as undone as Justin had seen him in many a year. Justin took hold of his hand and squeezed it tight, and Grant just slumped back against the seat with a sigh, while the bus started the upward pitch of the hill. Florian was listening to something through the remote in his left ear. He frowned a little, then his brows lifted. "Ah." A sudden twinkle in the eyes, a grin. "Security was complaining about the bus leaving. House Security just reported it's a request from Sarah. Sir Dennis just came on the system to confirm Sarah's authority to take Grant into custody. We're going to go through quite easily. We are in some trouble, Grant said, aren't we?
Moderately, Justin said. Did you have trouble at Platis?
None, Grant said. Absolutely none.
Good, he said,
And, considering they were within earshot of the Aussie driver, did not try to answer the look Grant gave him. The lift doors let them out in the large, barren expanse of Ari's outside hall, baggage and all, which Catelyn and Florian had appropriated, and Florian spoke quietly to empty air, advising Ari they were on the floor. The apartment door opened for them, down the hall, and Justin slipped his hand to Grant's arm as they walked.
We got into a bit of trouble, Justin said in the safety of Ari's private hall. We have Gerard on our backs. They were going to plant something on you, almost certain. We've got a deal going with Ari.
What deal?
He tightened his fingers once, twice. Take a probe. Just a handful of questions. It's all right, I swear to you.
Same deal for you?
Grant asked, worried, terribly worried.
Not, do you promise this is all right, but are you all right? Justin turned Grant around and flung his arms about him, a brief, hard embrace.
It's all right, Grant. She's our kid, all right? No games, no trouble. She's just taking our side. That's what's going on.
Grant looked at him and nodded. I haven't any secrets, Grant said. His voice was thin, a little hoarse. Do you get to stay there?
No, he said. Ari says I make her nervous. But I'll be in the room outside. I'll be there all the while.
Justin flipped pages in the hard print Florian had been thoughtful enough to provide him, the latest Science Bureau reports, which he managed to lose himself in. So that's actually a proper title, and I mangled that. I apologize. Like Reader's Digest. Justin flipped pages in the hard print Florian had been thoughtful enough to provide him, the latest Science Bureau reports, which he managed to lose himself in from time to time, but the physics was hard-going, and the genetics was Reseune's own Franz Kennert, reporting on the design of zooplankton, and he had heard Franz on that before. While a biologist at Svetlansk had an article on the increasing die-off of native Cyteen ecosystems and the creation of dead zones in which certain anaerobic bacteria were producing large methane pockets in valleys near Svetlansk. In valleys near Svetlansk, because we used Svetlansk as a proper thing. Never mind. It was not, finally, enough to hold his attention. Even the pictures failed, and he merely read captions and isolated paragraphs in a complete hodgepodge of data intake and stomach-wrenching anxiety. Old condition in his life. Reading reports while waiting for arrest, doing real-time life-and-death design work while awaiting the latest whim of administration on whether he could, in a given month, get word of his father's health. He flipped pages, backward and forward. He absorbed himself a moment in the diagrams of Svetlansk geology and looked at the photos of dead platytheres. There seemed something sad in that, no matter that it made room for fields and green plants and pigs and goats and humans. The photo of a suited human providing scale, dwarfed by the decaying hulk of a giant that must have lived centuries, seemed as unfeeling as the photos from old Earth, the smiling hunters posing with piles of carcasses, of tiger skulls and ivory. For some reason, tears rolled down his face, startling him, and his throat hurt. For a damn dead platythere. Because he was that strong, and he could not cry for Grant. Grant would look at him curiously and say, "Flux does strange things, doesn't it?" He wiped his eyes, turned the page, and turned the page again until he was calm, and finally, when he had found nothing powerful enough to engage his attention, thought, "Oh, God, how long can a few questions take?" The first Ari did Grant's designs. She's got access to those. She's got the whole manual, the same as Gerard.
Gerard left him a Z case. Has he gone out on her? They'd call me. Surely they'd call me.
He laid the magazine on the table in front of him and leaned his elbows on his knees, ground the heels of his hands into his eyes, and clasped his hands on the back of his neck, pulling against a growing ache.
Suppose that Jordan did plant something deep in him. Grant could do that, could take it in, partition it. Jordan wouldn't do that. God, surely no.
The door opened. In the hall, he looked up. The door opened in the hall. He looked up, hearing Ari's voice, hearing her light footsteps. She came out into the front room, not distressed-looking, tired.
He's sleeping, she said. No trouble.
She walked over to the couch where he was sitting and said,
He's absolutely clean. Nothing happened. He's asleep. He was upset. Of course, he had reason. He was worried about you. I won't stop you from waking him, but I've told him he's safe, and he's comfortable. I'll give the tape to Gerard. I have to. Gerard's got a real kink in his mindsets on what he calls your influence, and you know what he'd think if I didn't. Whether you do or not, he's still going to think it. If that tape proved us innocent beyond a doubt, he'd find one. She shook her head. Remember, I told Dennis I've got Ari's working notes? I just tell him I'm quite well in control of the situation, that when I'm through it won't make any difference what Jordan did or didn't do, that if he's worried about the Warwick influence, he can stop worrying. I'm working both of you.
It was credible, he thought, and of course it sounded enough like the truth under the truth to feed into his own gnawing worries and remind him of Emory at full stretch. Layers upon layers upon layers of truth hidden in subterfuge, and a damnable sense of humor. He rubbed at the back of his neck and tried to think, but thoughts started scattering in panic, except the one that said, no choice, the kid's the only force in the house that ultimately matters. No choice, no choice, no choice. Besides which, he heard her saying over the breakfast table, if your safety is linked to mine, it's not really like your father would make a real move against Reseune, is it? Let me tell you about Gerard, she said. Sometimes I hate him. Sometimes I almost love him. He's absolutely without feelings for people he's against. He's fascinated by little models and microcosms and scientific gadgets. He views himself as a martyr. He's resigned to doing dirty jobs and being hated. He's had very few soft spots, except his feud with your father, a lot of personal anger in that, except me. Except me, because I'm the only thing he's ever worked for that can put arms around him and give him something back. That's Gerard. We're on opposite sides of him. I don't say that to make you feel sorry for him. I just want you to know what he's like. I know what he's like, thanks. When people do bad things to you, it makes this little ego net problem, doesn't it? Isn't that what I learned back in psych? There's this little ego net crisis that says maybe it's your fault, or maybe everybody thinks you're in the wrong. Isn't that what goes on? And ego's got to restructure and flux the doubt down and go mono-value on the enemy, so there's no doubt left he's wrong and you're right. Isn't that the way it works? You know all that. If you think about that mono-value, it restarts all the flux and it hurts like hell. But what if you need to know the whole picture about Gerard to know what you ought to do? Maybe nobody ever gets that objective. Maybe nobody ever gets that objective, he said, when it's his ass in the fire. Gerard fluxed you real good. Are you going to let him get away with it, or are you going to listen to me? You do this under Cat, Sarah? No, you'd feel the echo if I had, wouldn't you? You're so fluxed on me you can't think straight. You're fluxed on me, on Gerard, on Jordan, on yourself, on everybody but Grant. That's who you'll protect. That's the deal, and I'm the only one who can offer it in the long run. Gerard's dying. He stood there, adrenaline coursing through him, but the body got duller with overload. The brain did. And Flux just straightened out, even when he knew she was operating, even when he knew step by step what she was doing, even when he realized there had been deep-level tweaks that had prepared for this. even when he felt amazement that she did it from around a blind corner and improvising as she went. The knot unkinked. He was wide open as drugs could send him for one dizzy instant. "All right," he said. "That's got one little flaw. Grant's not safe when you can meddle with him." "Grant would never do anything against you. That's as controlled as I need. I'd be a fool to meddle with the one stable point you've got, when what I want is to be sure where you are. You're the one I'd intervene with, if I was going to do it. But if Grant's safety is assured, you're going to remember, anytime you think about doing anything against me, that much as your father might want to, he hasn't got the power to protect himself, much less you, and I have. I'll never hurt Jordan. I'll never hurt Grant. I can't promise that with you. And right now you know exactly why. Because you're my leverage on a problem that threatens a whole lot more than just me." It was strange that he felt no panic. Deep-set work again. He felt that through a kind of fog, in which intellect took over and said, "And you're my leverage, aren't you? And you're my leverage, aren't you?" But aloud he said, "Can I see Grant?" She nodded. "I said so. But you'll stay here, at least for a few days. At least till I get it straightened out with my uncles." "It's probably a good idea," he said, quite calm, even relieved, past the automatic little flutter of alarm. Flux kicked back in. Defenses came up all the way. He thought about the chance that Gerard would arrest them, even over Dennis's objections. Or arrange their assassination. Gerard was not a man who worried about his own reputation. A professional, in his own nefarious way, who served a cause, with a capital C. Ari was right about that. Gerard would sacrifice even Ari's regard for him, to be sure in his own mind that Ari was safe. Gerard would do it dirty, too. It was Ari's regard for them he had to terminate. It was his ideas Gerard had to discredit. I'm going to reread that sentence couplet as I stumbled all the way through. Part of me wants to reread with punctuation intact, the one starting with "Grant would never do anything against you" and ending with "that threatens a whole lot more than just me." Because there's a lot going on there. I'm going to put a bookmark in. I might do that when we're done. Just so... I didn't mean to bop the microphone. That didn't do anyone any good. My apologies. Karate chop. Gerard would do it dirty, too. It was Ari's regard for them he had to terminate. It was his ideas Gerard had to discredit. There had been a plot to incriminate him through Grant. He was sure of that. Every trip to Planis was a risk. They were cut off again. No more visits. No chance to see Jordan. They were lucky to get Grant back unscathed, and if Gerard could work on Jordan indirectly... And if Gerard could work on Jordan indirectly... Jordan, knowing his son and his foster son had joined Ari's successor... There was no end to the what-ifs, no way to untangle truth and lies. Anyone could be lying. Everyone had reason. Every move Jordan made in Planis was a risk. Failing to get to them, Gerard might well move on Jordan to get the leverage on them in Reseune, to create doubts in Ari's mind. And Ari said, "I'm working both of you." God. He went to the hall and to the open library door, and into the dim room where Grant lay on the couch, asleep and very tranked. Florian was there, shadow in the corner, just sitting guard. Catelyn was not. Catelyn was somewhere else in the apartment, in the case he had violated instructions to stay in the front rooms, he thought. He laid his hand on Grant's shoulder and said, "Grant, it's Justin. I'm here the way I said." Grant frowned and drew a deep breath and moved a little and opened his eyes a slit. "I'm here," Justin said. "Everything's all right. She said you're all right." A larger breath, eyes showing white and pupil by turns as Grant struggled up out of the trank and reached after him. He took Grant's hand. "Hear me?" Double press on the inside of the wrist. "It's all right. You want Florian and me to carry you? You want to go to bed?" "Just lie here," Grant murmured. "Just lie here. I'm so tired. I'm so tired." His eyes closed again. "7. I'm doing quite well," Ari said over a bite of salad. Lunch at Changes, the 18th December. "They're back in their own residency. Everyone's happy. There's no problem with Jordan, no lingering messiness. I wasn't about to let them out where Gerard could get at them. You shouldn't worry. I can take care of myself. Is that enough said?" "You know what I think about it," Dennis said. "I appreciate your concern, but," she said with a small quirk of her brow, a deliberate smile, "you probably worried Ari Senior this way, too." "Ari was murdered," Dennis said. "Point." And Fila? Dennis was upset. Gerard was upset. Gerard hated disorder, and his own impending death was creating maximum disorder. There were beginning to be rumors in the house. No leak. Gerard's own appearance, increasingly frail despite his large bones, was its own indicator of a man in failing health. "One thinks she was murdered," Ari said. "Who knows? Maybe the pipe just blew. I've tried that door. A breath of air would disturb it at certain points. A blown cryo line is just that, isn't it? The line blows, she gets caught in the spray, falls, hits her head. The door closes quite naturally. Maybe murder was a useful story. Murder lets you take fairly extreme measures." "Is that what Justin says?" "No, Dr. Edwards." "When did John say a fool thing like that?" "Not specifically. He just taught me scientific procedure. I never rule anything out. I just think some hypotheses are more likely than others." "Confession makes it more likely, doesn't it?" "I suppose it ought to. All things equal. She cut up a cucumber slice. You know the kitchen's getting a little lazy. Look at this." She impaled a large lettuce rib. "Is that a way to serve?" "Let's stay to business, dear. Like why in hell you're being a fool about this man, which has much more to do with glands than you want to admit. If you don't realize your vulnerability, I can assure you it's going to dawn on him just as soon as the waves stop." "Except one thing, Uncle Dennis. Justin's not Jordan, and he can't kill. He absolutely can't, for the same reason he can't work in real time. He'd freeze. He can't even hate Gerard. He feels other people's pain. Ari exacerbated that tendency in him. She leaned on it hard. You see, I do have those notes. I know something else, too. Jordan was hers. She just couldn't use his slant on things, so she conned Jordan into a replicate, and she took him. She absolutely took him. If she hadn't died, Justin would have slid closer and closer over to... If she hadn't died, Justin would have slid closer and closer to her over the years, either healed the breach with Jordan or broken with him, because there's something very sad about his relationship to Jordan, and he would have learned it." "What's that, That Jordan would have smothered him. Ari was never afraid of competition. Jordan was. And that relationship, Justin and his father, would have become more and more strained under Ari's influence. That's exactly what I project. Jordan is an arrogant, opinionated man who had intentions for his replicate, but they weren't going to work because his son, with a good infusion of independence from Ari's side, was going to go head-to-head against him and make his life miserable. And I don't think Jordan's ego would ever let him see that.
You don't even know Jordan, Warwick.
Ari did. It's my predecessor talking now. It's my predecessor talking now. She set his whole life up. She provided Grant as an ameliorating influence on Justin, a partner of equal potential. Grant's predecessor was a special, predecessor. I need to remember how she pronounces words. Grant's predecessor was a special, but deep-setted to be profoundly supportive of his contract, which is exactly what a boy being pressured by his father to succeed would rely on, wouldn't he, for the unqualified emotional support he'd need? Grant was always the leverage Ari would have to get Justin away from Jordan when the time was right, and now I have him. I'm going on Ari's instructions on this. She valued Jordan's abilities. She just wanted them to support her work, which, by what everyone tells me, is exactly the point where she and Jordan clashed. Jordan accused her of taking his ideas and claiming them. Justin's voiced similar reservations, of course, and he's confessed to resentments. But I've got that covered.
How, pray tell?
I'm a little smarter than my predecessor. I've kept him out of my bed and dealt strictly with his professional qualifications.
I'm relieved.
I thought you would be. I know Gerard will be ecstatic. I know what he thinks went on while Justin was in my apartment. You can tell him not. I may have scared Justin out of good sense, but I've never scared him too much. I've behaved myself. I did a few psych tweaks on Ari's intervention with him while he was under, and he's really glad I let him alone. Pretty soon, he'll be all the way over to grateful.
You know, young Sarah, you're getting entirely too confident for your age.
I'm a lot of things too much for my age, Uncle Dennis. Most people find that completely uncomfortable. I really appreciate it that I can be myself with you, and with Gerard. I really do. I appreciate it, too, that you can be sensible with me. You're not dealing with little Ari anymore. I'm much, much more like my predecessor. More than I've let on in public, which is exactly, of course, what she'd do in my position. My enemies think they've got more time than they do, which is one way of dealing with the problem. And positioning myself. Which is why I've really urgently got to talk to you about Gerard, Uncle Dennis.
What about Gerard?
You're really very fond of him, aren't you? He's very much your right hand. And what are you going to do when he dies?
One sec.
Twitchbat. It's Twitchbat. Be banished to the nether realms. Annihilated from the time stream. Beep. Beep. Beep.
It's gone. Do 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 do. You're really very fond of him, aren't?
What about Gerard?
You're really very fond of him, aren't you? He's very much your right hand. And what are you going to do when he dies? Dennis drew in his breath and rested his hand beside his plate. Score one. Dennis looked as taken off guard as she had ever seen him. There was an angry frown, then a clearer expression.
What do you suppose I'll do?
I don't know. I wonder if you're thinking about it.
I'm thinking about it. We're both thinking about it.
Still the anger.
Your actions aren't helping. You know how volatile the situation in council is going to be.
I know Gerard's worried. I know how worried he is about me. The Warwick influence. God, I've heard that till I'm deaf. Let me tell you, Justin's not plotting against me. She saw the unfocusing of Dennis's eyes and rapped the table sharply with her knuckles. Listen to me now, Uncle Dennis. The focus came back. Stop thinking I'm a fool, all right? I need him for very specific, very professional reasons. He's working in an area I need or will need in future.
Nothing you couldn't do, young Sarah. Maybe. But why should I, when I can have someone else do it on his own level and save myself... Maybe, but why should I, when I can have someone else do it on his level and save myself the time? He'll like that. Oh, he'll get credit. I've told him. And unlike Jordan, Justin grew up number 2 in everything. He's got a good deal more flexibility than Jordan. What are you going to do with Jordan in your administration, pray tell? Let him loose? That would be abysmally stupid, Ari, and that's exactly what your young man is going to ask of you. What he already has asked of you. Why not be honest? I'm sure he has, just the same as he connived his way into your sympathy. He's asked, and I asked him if he thought Jordan himself would be safe, or whether Jordan could defend himself against people who'd want to use him, like the Paxers. Young woman, you are meddling. It doesn't take my abilities, Uncle Dennis, to guess what kind of stuff Gerard would like to have planted on Grant and Jordan about the time you break the news to the about the time you break the news the centrists are in contact with him. I'm sorry to mess Gerard up. I know he's furious with me. I'm sorry about that. But Gerard's messing up a much more important operation. Mine. And I won't stand for it. She poured more wine. They had chased the waiter away and asked him to respond only to the call button. You just don't give me enough credit, Uncle Dennis. Remember what I said about muddying the waters? I don't like that. I don't like it at all. Gerard's not thinking straight, and I wish you'd straighten him out. He's tired, he's ill, and in this, I just don't know how to talk to him. I thought you knew everything. Well, say that I know enough to know he's not well. He's trying to hide that from the world. He doesn't want to admit it to me, and it's a guaranteed explosion if I try to reason with him. Excluding Trag, which I'm not about to do to my uncle, you're the only one he'll listen to in this. You're the only one who can get him calmed down because he knows your objective and he won't believe that about me. And there's something else I want you to tell him. I want you to tell him the Warwick influence isn't the only thing going in Reseune. He should definitely believe, the Nye influence is terribly important to me, indispensable to me, and to Reseune. That's gratifying. I haven't gotten to my point yet. This is terribly delicate, Uncle Dennis. I don't want you to take this wrong, and it's so hard to discuss with Gerard. But Gerard's so hard-headed practical, and he's been such an influence on me, on Reseune. What do you think he'd feel about having a replicate done, like me? Dennis sat still a long, long moment. I think he'd be amazed, Dennis said. He'd also point out that he's not documented to the extent you are. It's possible it'll work. It's even probable. All I'd need is the ordinary house stuff. Damn, this is so awkward. I don't know how to approach asking him. I don't know how he feels about dying. He's never brought it up with me. I gather he doesn't want me to know. But I know a lot more about psychogenesis than you knew when you started. I know a lot I haven't written up. I know it from the inside. I know what matters and what doesn't, and where you came close to a real bad mistake. And I really think I could run it with Gerard, if he'd let me. Dear, when one's dead, there's not a precious lot one can do to stop you from any damn thing, now is there? It matters what you want, and what Gerard wants. I mean, his opinion is the most important, because that has to do with his psych sets, and whether his successor would be comfortable with what he is. That's critical. And there's who would be the surrogates. You're not young yourself to take on another kid. I thought about Yanni. Yanni's got the ability and the toughness. Maybe Gustav Morley. But you'd be best because you know things no one else can remember about your upbringing, and you can be objective, at least you could with me. But you weren't related to me. That's a difference to think about. That could be a lot of stress, and I'm not sure you want to cope with that now, with Gerard. Dennis had laid the fork down altogether. I'd have to think about that. At least talk to him. Please make him understand. I don't want to fight with him. I need him. I'll need him in things I can't foresee yet. That's why I want to do this. Tell him I love him and I know why he's doing these things to stop me, but tell him I know something too, and he should let me alone and let me operate. Tell him I understand all his lessons. I've learned from him well enough to protect myself. And tell him, if he wants to know what it's like to be a successor, I can tell him.
I find that a point of curiosity, too, Dennis said after a moment. What degree of integration there is? Is there identity?
Gentle smile. Profiles? Say they're real close. What it feels like, Uncle Dennis, what it feels like is you think, I'd never do that. But eventually you would. You almost remember things. Because they're part of the whole chain of events that lead to the point you go on from. Because you are a continuance, and what your predecessor did was important, and the people she knew are still there. The enemies and the friends are still there for reasons of what she was and what she did. More, you understand what she felt about things and how it all fitted from the gut, in your glands, in your bloodstream, and oh, it makes more and more sense. You see yourself on an archive tape and you feel this incredible identity with that person. You see a little slump. You straighten your own shoulders. Stand straight, Ari, don't slouch. You see a little upset. You feel personally threatened. You see anger. Your pulse picks up a bit. I will write a paper someday when the subject's much more commonplace, but I don't think it's a thing I want to have in the bureau reports right now. I think it's one of those processes Reseune can bastardize for the other agencies that want to do it with easy types. But they'll always send the specials to us. Because they're going to be the real problem cases. Alphas always are, even CITs. And that means more and more of the best talent begins at Reseune. Dennis gazed at her a long time without speaking. I am very much the woman you knew, she said. Never mind the kid's face, or the fact that my voice hasn't settled yet. There is a kind of fusion. Only I'm already working on Ari's final notes, not her starting hypotheses. Psychogenesis is a given with me. I'll do much more than she did. Isn't that what you wanted? Isn't that what you wanted?
Much more than we expected.
She laughed. Which way do I take that?
That we're very proud of you. I, personally, am very proud of you.
I'm glad. I'm very glad. I'm very grateful to you, Uncle Dennis, and to Gerard. I always will be. You see, Ari was such a cold bastard. She learned to be for very good reasons, but that part didn't have to be exact. I can love my uncles, and I can still be a cold bastard, when I have to be, just because I'm very self-protective. Because no matter what the advantages I've had, I'm a target, and I know it. I won't be threatened. I'll be there first. That's the way I am. I want you to know that.
You're very impressive, young Sarah.
Thank you. So are my uncles. And you're both dears, and I love you. I want you to think about what I want to do, about Gerard, and talk to Gerard, and tell me how he feels about it. Dennis cleared his throat.
I don't think he'll turn you down.
Is there identity? She knew damn well that Dennis was asking for himself.
What's it like? Will I remember?
That was the really E.T. one, which a sane man knew better than to wonder. So she flirted it right past him now, and made him sweat. Incidentally, I haven't mentioned this before now, but E.T., as in extraterrestrial, is one word, and it is spelled E-E-T-E-E. It occurs to me I have never mentioned that, and it's popped up a lot. My apologies. I'll tell you where an interesting study might be, Uncle Dennis. Getting me and Gerald together some day and letting us compare notes. I have the illusion of memory. I wonder if he will. Dennis had not taken a bite in half a minute. He sat there, a helpless lump. Shame on you, she thought to herself. That's awful, Ari. But something in her was quite satisfied. What in hell's the matter with me? I'm madder than hell, that's what. Mad that I'm young, mad that I'm dependent, mad that I'm trapped here and Dennis is being Dennis, and mad that Gerard's timing is so damn lousy, leaving me no way to get that seat. Damn it, I'm not ready for him to die. Dennis's fork rattled, another bite. He was visibly upset. How can I enjoy doing that? My God, he's an old man. What's gotten into me? Her own appetite curdled. She poked at the salad, extracting a bit of tomato. 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 Either way. She thought about it that night, listlessly dividing attention between a light sandwich Florian had made her, the evening news, and doing a routine entry on the keyboard, which she preferred to the scriber when she was listening to something. The fingers were output only, and what they were outputting was in a mental buffer somewhere. Pause. Tick, tick, tick. Pause. While the visual memory played out lunch and Uncle Dennis and the logical function worked on the politics of it. Is their identity? An E.T. kind of question in the first place, never mind that she had E.T. feelings about it. She knew how to explain them in perfectly solid and respectable terms. She was used to deep study. She could lower her threshold far further by wanting... Oh, my brain skipped a line. But my mouth didn't. I'm going to take the sentence from the top. Is their identity? An E.T. kind of question in the first place, never mind that she had E.T. feelings about it. She knew how to explain them in perfectly solid and respectable terms. She was used to deep study. She could lower her threshold further by wanting... She could lower her threshold further by wanting to than most people could on Eidos Cat. The tapes involved a person identical to her in the identical environment, and the wonder would be if the constant interplay of tape flash and day-to-day experience of the same halls, the same people, the same situations, did not muddle together in a flux-habituated brain. Dennis understood that, surely, on a logical level. People surely understood that. Damn, she was not dealing well with that aspect of it. She dealt with massive movements in the populace. Microfocus failed her. The average, harried, too busy for deep-think Novgorod worker.
Listen and learn, Ari, sweet. Ordinary people will teach you the truest, the most sane things in the world. Thank God for them. And beware anyone who can turn them all in one direction. That one is not ordinary. People were aware of Reseune's power, of the power her predecessor had wielded. In Principio was a phenomenon, Ariane Emory's basic theories and methodologies and the early character of Reseune, set almost within the most educated layman's grasp, so that there was, in the public mind, at least the glimmering of what no demagogue could have made clear before that book aroused such strange, such universal interest in the popular market. It had spawned E.T. fringe thinkers of its own, a whole new and troublesome breed who took Emory for their Bible and practiced experimental so-called integrations on each other, in the idea it would expand their consciousness, whatever that was. There were already 3 cases down in the wards, Novgorod CITs who had all drug-tripped their way to out there on massive overdoses, run profound interventions on each other, and now outraged staid old Gustav Morley by critiquing his methodology. A handful of admirers had outraged Reseune security, too, by trying to leave the lounge down at the Reseune Air Terminal and hike up toward the house, proclaiming that they had come to see Ariane Emory. with the result that Reseune was urgently considering building a new terminal for commercial flights, far down from the old one where, in the old days, family and ordinary through travelers using Reseune Air had once mingled with casual indifference. A handful of would-be disciples had turned up over in Mauryville looking for a boat, until wary locals, thank God, had figured out what they were up to and called the police.
My God, what do I do if I meet one of these lunatics? What are they after? It's a phase. A fad. It'll go. If it weren't this, they'd be getting ET transmissions on their home vids. Why didn't we see this? But of course we saw it. Just inside. There's always the fringe. Always the cheap answer, the secret way to whatever. Novgorod's in chaos. Paxers threatening people. Wages aren't rising to meet spot shortages. Danger signs. People yearning after answers. Seeking shortcuts. Seeking them in the work of a murdered special. In the person of her replicate, as the knives fade, as the unstable period after that assassination births more instabilities, elections upon elections, bombings, shortages, and the child. The child verges on womanhood and competency in her own right, announcing herself with the recovery of Ari Senior's legendary lost notes. Damn well what I expected science to understand, but Novgorod's understanding it at a completely different level. The children of Azi's children, the constituency of Reseune, Ari's own creation, no theory in a sociology computer. It's there. It's ready. And Gerard, damn him, can't hold on to that seat long enough for me.
Vidov, she said, and leaned back and shut her eyes, feeling that general pricklishness that meant her cycle was right on schedule.
Tomorrow I should work in, stay away from people. I hurt Dennis today. I had him. I didn't need to take that twist. Why in hell did I do that? What am I mad about? Adrenaline high, that's what's going on, not mentioning the rest of the monthly endocrine cocktail. Damn, that was an underhanded shot I took. Dennis didn't deserve that. I know what Ari came to. Her temper, her damnable temper, the anger she was always afraid to let out. Frustration with the irrational, with a universe moving too slow for her mind. God, what's going on with me?
She tasted blood, realized she had bitten her lip, and unfocused. She pressed her hands against her forehead, leaning back in the chair, shut her eyes, thinking about that tape, Justin's tape, thinking, God, no, not when she was fluxing this bad, not when she could think of it as surrogate. Leave the damn thing in the cabinet, locked up, safe. Let it be. It was, oh God, not for entertainment.
Damn it, Ari, get off it! Watch the damn fish. Watch the fish procreate and breed and spawn and live their very short lives, back and forth in the tank beside the desk. Sex and death, breeding and devouring their own young if God did not take precautions and intervene with the net. How long can an ecosystem survive, inputting both the biomass of its own dead and its own births, and the artificial sunlight? If you put them with big fish, there won't be any blue fish at all. Do you know whether a fish sees colors?
Breathing grew more even. Time reached a slower pace. Eventually she could sigh, bring the emotional temperature down, and postpone thinking. She got up and logged off and went to her bedroom, quietly, not to draw Florian and Catlin's notice. She just wanted bed, that was all. But she sat staring at the dresser-top corner where Pooh Thing rested, well-worn and disreputable. No condemnation there. She thought about putting him in the drawer. What if she had brought Justin to her room while he was there? And there was poor Pooh Thing to laugh at. That was the whole trouble. That there were no more games, there was no more give and take with friends, no more throwing a dart to see if it got one back, and having Uncle Dennis come back at her, hard-edged wit, a little sting to put her in her place. She tried to get a rise out of him, and there was no bounce back, no humor, nothing but the wary fencing of an old man who was no longer the power, just the threatened. Floating in black space. Welcome to the real world. Pooh thing's worn out. Dennis is a scared old man. And you're what he's scared of. People won't argue with you. Who wants to lose all the time? I could do any damn thing I want in Reseune. Like take anybody, anything, teach them what I could do. Teach them what I could do. In one day, I could scare hell out of this place, make them understand I'm holding in. Everybody'd love me then, wouldn't they? Pooh Thing stared with wide black eyes. I ought to take you to work, set you on the desk. You're the best conversationalist in Reseune. Damn it, someone pull a prank on me. Someone make me laugh. Someone, for God's sake, answer me. I can see all the star stations, all the Azzy sets, the whole thing in slow flux. So damned slow and so dangerous. Where's the advice, Pooh Thing? Amy and Maddie and Tommy and Sam, Florian and Catelyn, Justin and Grant, Yanni and Andy down in AG. It's talking, fool. The whole universe is talking. Listen and be amazed. Nellie, Mama and Ollie, Dennis, Gerard present and Gerard soon to be. The static of the suns. Sarah? She drew a long breath. Short-focused again, black-clad figure in the doorway, tall and blonde, worried. I'm fine, she said, and discovered her legs asleep. Foolish predicament, gratefully foolish. She rubbed her aching thighs and levered herself up with absolute gracelessness, leaning on the headboard. When she could stand, she went over to the dresser, picked up Pooh Thing, and put him in the drawer. Catelyn looked at her strangely for that, too, but she doubted Catelyn had ever understood Pooh Thing in the first place. Eight. Punch and sugary cookies. Ari nipped one off the table herself, ignoring the kitchen's more elaborate confections, savored the plain flavor, and took a drink of the green punch which she preferred, thank you, from the non-alcoholic bowl. A little girl slipped up through the crowd of olders and snatched a handful, and a second. Fast escape. That was Ingrid Kennert, aged 6. Ari chuckled to herself on a fleeting memory, and frankly could not recall for a second whether it was a flash off some archive tape or out of her own past. New Year's. God, of course it had been a New Year's. The music changed, live this year. A handful of the techs had a band, not bad either. But the glitter was the same, and Maman and Ollie... She caught a flash of silver jewelry out of the corner of her eye, and for a second saw a ghost. But it was only Connie Morley, who was tall and thin and wore her dark hair upswept and elegant. She had a second of tryst, no reason, just looked away across the floor where olders were sitting. Dennis. Gerard was in Novgorod this season. Petros Ivanov. Dr. Edwards. He could, she swore, never be John to her, no matter how old she got. And old Windy Peterson and his daughter, out dancing, Peterson trying to learn the new step. Maddie Strassen was beautiful, really beautiful, in silver-blue satin. No shortage of partners for her, or Stacy, her faithful shadow. And Amy Carnath. Amy was out on the floor with a very correct, very confused-looking young Azzy who was, however, doing quite well with the step. Blonde, crew-cut, and terribly handsome. Security, stiff as they came when Amy had gotten her hands on him, but loosening up a bit, to the amusement of all of them and the evident disquiet of Amy's mother. The lad was alpha, and social as far as Green Barracks went. Yes, sirrah, with a real snap in the voice. Quentin, his name was. Quentin AQ-8, who just might have ended up being contracted to house security or Reseune space, or outside if any of a small handful of qualified agencies had wanted to pay the $1.25 million for his contract, for an Azzy who had to be supered directly from Reseune, and whose reflexes were dangerously fast. Quentin AQ would have found himself in someone's employment in another year. Quentin was, Florian and Catelyn reported, a very happy, if very over-anxious young man, and Amy was in love, probably described it. At least it was a very healthy dose of infatuation, which made Amy Carnath insist Quentin was her partner. Quentin was going out onto the floor, fashions and customs changed, and people were forgetting why the old rules existed with the earliest Azzy. It had gotten to have completely different reasons, and it was going to stop. The youngers did it at their parties, the olders could just accept it, so there. Thus, Amy Carnath. "Florian," Ari had said then, so Amy and Quentin were not out there alone. And after a while, there were a few others. But mostly Florian and Catelyn shadowed her very closely, and Florian refused Stacy with an earnest, "I'm terribly sorry, I'm on duty." That was the way the world changed. In the house, Florian and Catelyn were shadowing her with the attention they had used in Novgorod. No relaxing, no letdown. The Novgorod authorities were scared out of their minds about the New Year's crowds and the chance of an incident. Hell of a thing. The Paxers were not Ari's design, she was more and more convinced. A cultural inheritance, an ugly little side trip in the independence-prioritied mindsets that had founded Union. The grandsons and granddaughters of rebel scientists and engineers blew up kids in subway stations and wanted to run the government. They talked about potential worms in Justin's designs 20, 30 generations down. Union had a few after 3 generations, real serious ones, and she was scared going into a controlled situation like New Year's with family and staff, with Florian and Catelyn to watch with a trained eye for anything unusual. To have a Novgorod citizen's choice, kilometers of walking in ped tunnels or twice daily percentaging the headlines and the mood of politics to decide whether to risk a 10-minute subway ride, not mentioning the chance of some ordinary Z case putting the push on you for your keycard. Hell of a way to live. But Novgorod citizens hated the idea of a master system for keycards, a danger to their freedom, they argued. She had, she thought, a higher anxiety threshold than she did. They had, she thought, a higher anxiety threshold than she did, but they were holding their own. That was the good part. Hell with the Paxers. People held on. And she, Ari Emory, she followed the situation and wondered if there was perhaps merit in the idea of a major program to buy off thousands of military Azzies still rejuvable, bring them back to Reseune for retraining, exactly the way they had done before she was born. No question, then, of the bad precedent of having armed troops keeping order in Novgorod, but a loan of a civilian agency from Reseune administrative territory to the municipality of Novgorod. If these were the times they lived in, as well have a response for it, if it meant enforcement standing line of sight in every ped tunnel and subway in Novgorod. Manpower was the original reason Reseune existed, and she was working out the proposal to land on Dennis's desk, and expected Dennis to say no. Reseune was making profit again, and Dennis was determined to hold the line against what he called her out-there ideas. She sighed, watching Uncle Dennis from across the room and seeing a tired lump of a man who had some very strange turns, who had, she had discovered it in Dennis's base in the house system, a huge volume of unpublished work that she ached to talk with him about, work on interstation economics that was bound to cause a ripple when it did come to light. She did not understand it, but it was very massive and very full of statistics. A huge work on the interaction of economics with the expansionist theory of government that was absolutely fascinating. A massive study of the development of consumer society in Azzy-descended population segments, including specific tracing of psych-setted values in several generations of testing. A study of replicate systems, of a kind that looked very much like Giraud's work. until she put her finger on the telltale phrases and turns of speech and realized to her shock that Gerard did not write the things published under Gerard's name. They were Dennis's writings. And this secret store of them, this absolute treasure house of ideas, kept in archive? Never brought forward, just meddled with from time to time, adjusted. An enormous work in progress from a man so obsessively retiring that he maneuvered his brother into a special status so that Gerard could have the reputation and do the public things, while Dennis stayed in the background, appearing to devote himself exclusively to administrative work and the day-to-day decisions and approvals for R&D and implementations. Besides bringing up a kid for a few years, letting her into that intense privacy, hosting birthday parties and putting up with Nellie and 2 junior security trainees, while writing these things that never appeared, only grew and grew. Strange man, she thought, objective about Dennis for the first time in her life. Willing to take on Gerard's replicate, oh yes, beyond any doubt, and facing Gerard's death with not quite grief, a sense of impending catastrophe. No difficult question at all why Dennis had been so willing to take her in, why he had thrown all Reseune into turmoil to recover Ariane Emory's abilities for Reseune. Dennis was brilliant. Dennis had the old problem with alphas. That lack of checks, lack of boundaries, that floating in black space problem that meant no minds to bounce off, no walls to return the echo. Dennis was brilliant, and quite E.T. and self-defensive, and incapable, perhaps, of believing his work was finished. Hence the perpetual adjustments. A mind working on a macro system that only kept widening. A perfectionist with the need to be definitive. No need of people at all, just a student of them. And facing death, Gerard's and his own, with incredulity. Dennis was the center of his own universe, Gerard his willing satellite, and of course Dennis was interested in psychogenesis. Dennis was so damned interested he had almost lost his balance with her. Dennis wanted immortality, even without personal continuance, and she had only to hold out the promise. If Gerard was essential to the universe, who more than Dennis? She turned, set the cup on the edge of the table, and started, expecting the person behind her to be Florian, about to take the cup. But it was Justin, but it was Justin, and she was chagrined in that half-second at being that on edge, and at being caught being foolish. He took her hand, said, "I think I remember how," and offered the other hand. She stared at him, thinking, how much has he had? And lifted her hands to his, fingers locked in fingers, the two of them moving out onto the floor to an older, slower number. He had been drinking, probably no few drinks, but he moved with some grace, surely as aware as she was of the fact other dancers broke step to gawk at them, that the music wobbled and recovered. He smiled at her. Ari never danced, but her dinners were always good for a week of office gossip. What in hell are you trying to do? What I'm doing. What you did, with Florian and young Amy. Good for you. Good for you, Ari Emory. Damned right. I thought, a little social rehab, twice in a night, figuring you have a sense of humor. Other dancers were in motion, recovering their graces, and Justin's smile was thin, deliberately held. You're not in some kind of trouble, are you? No, just thinking. I've lost a big piece of my life, staying inconspicuous. What the hell? Why not? She caught a glimpse of Dennis's chair near the door, vacant, and thought, God, where are the edges of this thing? The music finished. People applauded. She stared a second at Justin, a second that felt all too long and public. I've made a serious mistake. Cover it, for God's sake. It's like the Amy Quentin thing. People will take it that way with Q enough. She walked with Justin hand in hand from the floor, straight for Catelyn. Here's the one to teach you the new steps. She's really amazing. Catelyn, show Justin, will you? She walked with I just read that. As the band started up again, and Catelyn smiled, took Justin by the hand, and took him back to the floor. Grant was over by the wall, watching, with worry evident. Florian, she said, go ask Grant what the hell Justin's up to. Yes, sirrah, Florian said, and went. Dennis was gone from the room. So was Seeley. Justin's linked himself with me, publicly. Not that everyone didn't know, but that I let it go. That they'll gossip about. She looked to the floor, where Justin made a brave and even marginally successful attempt to take up on Catelyn, and to the corner of the room, where Florian and Grant were in urgent converse. Dennis walked out. Florian came back before the end of the dance. Grant says, it's CIT craziness. I had no notion of this. Grant asked your help, but he says if he intervenes, it may be public and tense. He says Justin's been on an emotional bent ever since he and Grant went back to their own residency. Grant says he's willing to speak to you about it, but then he said, Sirrah intervened. Asked Sirrah if this is the result of it. Ari frowned. Damn it. Maddie, Florian said, which was a better idea than she had, flux as she was. Maddie, she said, go. Damn it. Damn it. He's pushing. Damned if this is innocent. Dennis was here, the whole family watching. She took a deep breath. No more easy course. He's no kid. Dennis isn't. Now they're not dealing with me as a kid either, are they? Grant thinks this is an emotional trip, or that's what Justin's told Grant to say. Damn, I should hold him in for a question and answer on this little trick. Damn, I should. And he'd never trust me, never be the same Justin, would he? Catelyn and Justin were leaving the floor. Maddie Strassen moved in with Maddie's own peculiar grace, said something to Catelyn, and appropriated Justin's arm, walking him over to the refreshments while the band took a break. And Stacy Ramirez was moving in from the other side. Thank God. She drew quieter breaths, sure that Dennis had his spies in the room, people who would report to him exactly the way things went. Like Petros Ivanov. Which could only help at this point. Grant stayed as unobtrusive as Grant's red-haired elegance could ever be, over in a corner of the room, having a bit of cake and a cup of punch. And talking to young Melly Kennert, who was 12, completely innocent. Maddie partnered Justin through 2 dances. Ari took the second one with Tommy Carnath, who was looking a little grim. Patience, Ari said. For God's sake, we've got a problem. He's the problem, Tommy said. Ari, he's moving on you. Your uncle's mad. If Tommy saw it, so did a lot of other people. And nothing could cover it. All she could do was signal she was not responding to the overture. Embarrass him and send him off? He was vulnerable as hell to that, laying himself wide open to it, betting his entire career and maybe his life on that move, and not stupid, no. No way that a man who had run the narrow course he had run all his life suddenly made a thorough break with pattern on a flight of emotion. No matter if he was drunk. No matter what. Justin had thought about what he was doing. And put her on the spot. Support me in front of the whole family, or rebuff me. Now. I'll kill him. I'll kill him for this. Nine. So Justin's here, Florian said, via the minder, and Ari said, without looking up from her desk, Damn well about time. Bring him to the den. Him, not Grant. Grant's not with him, Florian said. Florian had not let him in yet. The minder always beeped in her general area to let her know when an outside access opened. It did then, and she waited to finish her note to the system before she stirred from her chair, told Base 1 log off, and walked down the hall to the bar and the den. Justin was there, in the room that held so many bad memories, walking the narrow margin behind the immense brass-trimmed couch, looking at the paintings, while Florian waited unobtrusively by the bar. Unconscious echo on Florian's part. He and Catelyn had never seen the tape. She chose this place. Favor for favor. "I want to know," she said, to his back, across the wide expanse of the wood-floored pit, "what in hell you hoped to accomplish last night." He turned to face her, indicated the painting he had been looking at.
"That's my favorite. The view of Barnard's. It's so simple, but it affects you, doesn't it?"
She took in her breath.
"Affects you indeed. He's working me, that's what he's after." "Grant asked me for help," she said. "You've got him scared. I hope you know that. What are you trying to do? Unravel everything? It's damned ungrateful. I kept Gerard off your tail. I kept you out of detention. I've taken chances for you. What do you expect I should do? Shout across the room? I do you a favor. I do every damn thing I can to help you. What do you do for me? Push me in public. Put me in a situation. I don't think I'm that much smarter than you are, Justin Warwick, so don't tell me you were just going from the gut. I'll tell you you wanted me in a corner. Back you or not, on your damn timetable. And if Tommy Carnath saw it, and Florian saw it, and Stacy Ramirez saw it, you tell me whether Yanni Schwartz or Petros Ivanov or my uncle missed it." He walked around the edge of the pit to the front of the bar. "I apologize." "Apologize won't handle it. I want to know, simply and clearly, what you want." "You can always ask that. Isn't that the agreement?"
"Don't push me. Don't push me. I'm still trying to save your butt, hear me?"
"I understand you."
He leaned against the bar and looked at Florian.
"Florian."
"Sir?"
"Scotch and water. Do you mind?"
"Sirrah?"
"My usual. His. It's all right, Florian."
She walked down the steps and sat down on the couch, and Justin came down and sat. Put his elbow on the couch back in the same way as all those years ago, unconscious habit or scene-following as deliberate as hers, she did not know.
"All right," she said. "I'm listening." "Not much to say, except I trusted you."
"Trusted me? For what? A damned fool?"
"It was just there. That's all. What would I do? Work in your wing, be your partner another 20 years till Dennis dies? Keep my head down and my mouth shut and attend all those damned parties, 20 lousy years of going through every social function, all the department functions, everything, with every CIT in the house feeling like he has to explain himself to security, or your uncle if he's spotted talking to me? Hell of a life, Ari."
"I'm sorry," she said shortly, which was true. She had had a dose of it, too, in growing up, and she had seen it happen to him and felt it in her gut. "But that still doesn't say why you did it. Why you had to wait for a damned sensitive time. I just got things smoothed over with Dennis. I just got things settled, and you throw me a move like that."
"Sorry," he said bitterly.
"Sorry?"
"Times are always sensitive. Always. It's always something. I'm cut off from my father again, damn it, because of Gerard. I've got your word he's safe. That's all I've got."
His voice wobbled. Florian set the whiskey down by his hand, on the shelf behind the couch, and ghosted her direction, putting the vodka and orange by hers.
"Which," he continued, after a drink, "I don't doubt. But that's why. Others do doubt my father's safety. Gerard is one. So damned easy to have an incident. A confusion on the part of some poor sod of an Azzy guard, isn't it? Terrible loss. A special. But as you say, Gerard's dying. What can he care? You underestimate him, if you think he's not going to try to be rid of my father. Except if he finds things aren't settled at Reseune and I'm a threat he can't get at. Next to you. Then he'll doubt. And Gerard, scheming bastard that he is, never makes a precipitate, reckless move. I want his attention. I want it on me until he's dead. It's that simple."
It made sense. It made a tangled, out-of-another-mindset sense. If you were Justin Warwick, if you knew Gerard, if you had no power and nothing to bluff with except Ari Emory and a potential for trouble.
So, he said, I just saw a chance. I didn't thoroughly plan it. I just saw what you did with the Carnath girl, Amy, and thought, if you blew up, well, maybe I could patch it. If you covered me, it'd get to Gerard. Maybe it'd look like more than it was and worry hell out of him. I'm sorry if it's fouled you up, but I doubt it has. Fouled up your plans to keep me pure in security's sight, maybe. Worried Dennis, I'm sure. But messed up anything for you personally? I very much doubt it.
Nothing like the mess you've made for yourself.
Good. On both counts.
You're a damn fool. You could tell me, you know. You could trust I can keep an eye to Jordan.
No, I can't trust that. I can't trust that when you're not in contact with the military, when you're not in Gerard's position, and you're not in Dennis's chair either. I can't depend on your knowing what they're up to. I'm sorry.
He didn't know Base 1's extent. Had no idea. And there was no telling him. Not on any account. She sipped her vodka and orange, set it down, and shook her head.
You could have at least consulted me. And put you on your guard? No. Now's done's done. I'm being honest, since you've asked. I'm asking you one more thing. Run a probe if you like, but don't give the tape to Dennis.
Who said I did?
I don't know. I just have my suppositions what would appease Dennis. Don't give this one out. It can only harm my father. It sure won't make me look any better to either one of the Nyes.
Except if I don't, they'll be sure I'm going along with what you did.
So you are turning the tapes over.
The ones I admit to running. I've never let them have Ari's notes on you. I've never shown them what I did to settle some of the damage Ari left. The unresolved stuff. I've never shown them the little intervention that let you be here, this close to me, without sweating.
Without worse than that. Without much worse than that. I'm still getting tape flash now and again, but most of the charge is gone. I only remember at much more distance than I've ever had. Or I never could have done what I did at the party. Never could have come here. Never could have contemplated my real plan for irritating Gerard.
That being?
Going to bed with you.
That jolted hard. It was so matter-of-fact she was half embarrassed, only dimly offended at first blink.
Not, he said, that I thought of doing anything you hadn't flatly asked me, once and twice and recently. Make you happy. Make Gerard quite unhappy. And not in a way that could hurt you. I never wanted that. To be honest, I wasn't sure I could. So I just took a different course when it offered itself, that's all. I hope I didn't offend you. And I wouldn't mention it, except I'd rather explain it with my wits about me, thank you, where I can at least string things together in my own defense. So there you are. That's why.
It was a deliberate move that made it psychologically harder for her to insist on a probe, quiet things down, defuse the situation, and tell enough of the truth to make everything reasonable. Come in here without Grant, too. That, when he knew he was potentially in trouble.
Damn, possibilities multiplied ad infinitum when it involved motives and an unacknowledged special whose stresses came from everywhere and everyone, not least the fact that she had worked him under Cat, grabbed hold of things which were profoundly important to him, and tried, at least, to tie up the old threads, far as one could in a mind that had changed so much since Ari's notes, and considering the psychological difference of their reversed ages.
Very tangled. Very, very tangled.
You've messed up work of mine, she said. You've made me problems. I've got reason to be mad. And I supported you out there, damn it. Yes, he said, which I hoped you'd do.
It's a damn mess. She swallowed down any assurances she could give of Jordan's safety, or how she knew. Frustrating as it was to look like a fool, better that than be one.
Damn it, you've put me at odds with Gerard. I don't see why I should have to handle problems you've made me because you could betray my interests and trust I'd forgive you. That's a hell of a thing.
I didn't have a choice. You damn well did. You could have told me. He shook his head slowly. You're really pushing me, Justin. You're damn well pushing me. I didn't have a choice. And now I've got to cooperate and keep Gerard's hands off you, or he'll blow your whole little scheme, is that it? Something like. What else can I say? I hope you will. I hope you will. And I don't hope for too much in my life. Thanks. He nodded once, ironically. So you get off cheap, she said. You get everything you want, and you don't even have to go to bed with me. Ari, I didn't mean that. I know. Not fair. There was a deep link in his sets to Ari, and she knew that. Knew that it was active in this place at this time. That it was double-hooked. He hoped to snare her into it, to irritate Gerard. He was still maneuvering. She knew where it was going. But there were deeper hooks than he knew. You want me to? He asked. I don't know, she said. Then, no. Not like it was pay for something. There's a security wall down the hall. There's a guest accommodation on the other side. You go there. Florian will get you through. I'll call Grant to come up. Florian and Catelyn will supervise housekeeping, shutting down your apartment, packing up what you'll need. If they leave anything out, you can go back with them to get it. He looked shocked. You want my help, she said. It does cost. It costs you the apartment you have. It costs you your independence. It costs you convenience the way it costs me. But you're not going to go into security, and you're damn sure not going to spill what you know about me to Gerard either. Which is the other part of your threat, isn't it? I don't know what I know. I'm sure you could figure it. You come and go through that security door. Your cards will admit you. You'll move into Wing 1 facilities, and I don't know who I'm going to have to bump to make room for you, but you're going inside Wing 1 security, and inside my security, and I don't want any argument about it. None, he said quietly. Ten.
Grant is here.
The minder said, and Grant is here, the minder said, and Justin leaped up off the couch, was at the door before Grant could open it, as Grant came alone into the apartment. Are you all right? Grant asked, first off. Fine, Justin said, and embraced him. Thank God. No trouble? Grant shook his head and drew a breath. I got the call. I told M hold the office down. I walked out into the hall and Catelyn picked me up. Walked me all the way to the lift. She said she'd go to the apartment and bring essentials and anything we call down for. No questions, nothing. Habit of half a lifetime. We can talk, Justin said, realizing that fact. That there was nothing now that could be secret if Ari wanted it. Nothing that anyone but Ari was going to reach here in this place. It was a moment of vertigo, old cautions tumbling away into dark on either side. The thought shook him, left him lonely for reasons he could not understand. God, it's not home, is it? Grant held on to him. He felt himself shivering suddenly. He had no notion why, or what he feared specifically, only that nothing seemed certain any longer, not even their habits of self-defense. Not home. Not the place he had always lived, not the obscurity they had tried to maintain. They were closer and closer to the center of Reseune. No probe, he said. Ari asked why. Reasonable question. I told her. This is her notion of increased security. I've got to show you around this place. You won't believe it. He got control of his nerves, turned Grant around, and gave him the full perspective of the living room and dining room. It was a huge apartment by any standards.
A front hall, mostly stone, roofed in plasticized woolwood, a sitting room with a gray sectional, black glass tables, and beyond that a dining hall with white tile, white walls, black and white furnishings. My God, Justin's first thought had been, an emotional impact of stark coldness, an irrational, one red pillow, anything to save your sanity in this damn place.
It's quite large, Grant said, diplomatically, he thought. Isn't it? Isn't it?
Come on, he said, and took Grant the tour. It was better in the halls, pastel blues and greens leading off to a frost-green kitchen, and a white hall to a suite of rooms in grays and blues, a lot of gray stone, occasional brown. A sybaritic bath in black and silver, mirrored. Another one, white and frost-green glass. My God, Grant said when he opened another door on the master bedroom, black and black glass and white, huge bed. 5 people could sleep in that.
They probably have, Justin said, and suffered a moment of flashback, a bad one. They promise us sheets and supplies. There's some sort of scanning system they run things through, even our clothes. It puts some kind of marker on it. If we pass the door with anything that hasn't gone through scan...
Alarm sounds. Catelyn explained that, right down to the socks and underwear.
Grant shook his head and looked at him.
Was she angry?
He did not mean Catelyn. Justin nodded. Somewhat. God knows she's got a right to be, considering. But she's willing to listen. At least, that.
Grant said nothing, but the silence itself was eloquent as the little muscle twitch in the eyes toward the overhead. Do we worry about monitoring? Because Grant knew. Grant knew everything that he had confessed to Ari and then some, as far as their intention to divert Gerard. But there were things between himself and Ari he could not say where monitoring might exist, things she might go after under probe, but he could not bring them out coldly and have her know that Grant knew, the feeling he had had in that room in Ari's apartment, the shifting between then and now. The gut-deep feeling, passing at every other blink between them, and now... Oh, I don't know how to read. N's and M's, they're all the same. The gut-deep feeling, passing at every other blink between then and now, to look into Ari's eyes gone by turns young and old, knowing, for the first time since he was younger than she was now, that the sexual feelings that haunted every touch of other human beings, every dealing he had with humanity, had a focus, had always had a specific, drug-set focus. He might have gone to bed with her. He could have gone to bed with her, in one part of his imagining. More, he had wanted to, for about 2 heartbeats, until he had flashed, badly, waiting on her answer, and known that he would panic, and was caught somewhere between a fevered hope of her and a sweating terror, as if she was the key, or the destruct. God, what has she done to me? What keys has she got? Justin, Grant said, and caught his arm. Justin. He held to Grant's shoulder and shuddered.
Oh, God, Grant.
What's wrong? Grant's fingers gripped the back of his neck, pressed hard. Justin? His heart raced. He lost vision for a moment, broken out in sweat, feeling himself nowhere at all, if Grant were not holding him to him.
That's what Ari wanted, all those years ago. Wanted me fixed on her. I've lost everything, dragged Grant and Jordan with me. This is all they'll ever be, sweet. Worm. Psych master. She was the best there ever was. Pleasure and pain. Deep-set links.
His heart made a few deep, painful beats. But he could adjust to that, the way he adjusted to everything, always. Life was, that was all. One lived. Even knowing that the worst thing that had been done to him all those years ago was not sexual. Sex was only the leverage. Endocrine learning and flux applied full force, the kind of wrench that could take a vulnerable, frightened kid and twist him sideways into another research, another path for his entire existence.
She saw to my birth.
one could live, even with the ground dropping out from under one's feet, even with black space all around. What did she do? Grant asked him, a sane, worried voice out of the mental dark, a hard pressure around him at the back of his neck. Justin?
She gave me the keys a long time ago, he murmured. I knew, damn it, I knew. I should have seen.
Things began to focus then. Vision came back, the edge of Grant's shoulder, the stark black and white room that was not home, the knowledge that, foreseeably, they would not go back to the friendly, familiar apartment with the brown stone and the little breakfast nook that had always seemed safe, no matter what they knew about security monitoring.
She knew she was dying, Grant. She was the best damned analyst going. She could read a subject like no one I ever saw. Do you think she never knew Gerard?
Ari Senior? Grant asked.
Ari. She knew Gerard was no genius. She knew who would follow her. Do you think she didn't know them better than we do? Ari said, I was the only one who could teach her. The only one. That she needs my work. And she's working off Ari's notes, doing what Ari told her to do. All down the line.
Grant pushed him back. He stared up into Grant's worried face, seeing it as a stranger would. In an objective way, he had never looked at Grant. The unlikely perfection. Ari's handiwork, too, from his gene sets to his psych set. Everything was. Everything. No good any longer in fighting the design. Even Grant was part of it. He was snared, he had always been. Better.
She wanted Jordan. Jordan failed her. She saw to my creation. Designed Grant. Fixed me on her. In one damnable stroke. Everything's connected to everything. Field too large.
Justin?
God, is the kid that good? Does she know what she's doing to me? Whose hand was on the switch in there? Which Ari? Does it even matter that one could set a path that sure? That the other could operate, just take it up and go?
Grant seized his face between his hands, popped a light slap against his cheek. Justin!
I'm all right, he said. I'm scaring hell out of him, but I'm not scared. Just cold as hell now. Calm. Helps when you know the truth, doesn't it? I'm all right. Just went a little sideways for a moment.
He patted Grant's shoulder, distanced himself a few steps, and looked down the hall, the strange not-home hallway.
Like I'd waked up. Like, for a moment, I could just shake it all off, think right past it.
He felt Grant's hand on his shoulder, and he acknowledged it with a pressure of his own. Scared again, because he was alone where he was standing, and Grant wanted to be with him, but he was not sure Grant could be. That anyone could be. And Ari was out so far ahead of him, in territory that was hers and her predecessors, in places that he could not reach. Places Jordan had never been. Ultimate isolation.
Our poor kid, he murmured, is Ari. Damn, she is. No one ever caught up to her. She's going out into that place that no one can get to and no one can really speak to. That's what's going to happen to her. Happening to me, sometimes.
He blinked and tried to come back, to see the lights again. Damned stark decor. Black and white dining room down the hall.
God, housekeeping's got to have a red vase or something, doesn't it? Pillows, pictures, something.
What are you talking about? Grant asked. The Supra's training tried to assert itself.
Get yourself together. You're scaring him. Flux. Not a damn thing human in this apartment. Until we get a few things up from ours. Things with color. Things that are us. God, this place is like a bath in ice water.
Is that what's the matter?
Something like.
He blinked rapidly, trying to clear his eyes of the fog and focus short range.
Maybe just thinking this was where we would have ended up if Ari had lived a little longer. This would have been ours.
Justin, what the hell are you talking about?
Common sense. Ari didn't want to ruin Jordan. She needed his abilities. She was dying. She knew the Nyes for pragmatic sons of bitches. Conservative as hell. She wasn't. And they were going to have her successor. Don't you think she worried about that? And if she'd had 2 more years, even 6 more months, I damn well know, I wouldn't have been what she took in. I might have been able to fight Gerard. Might have had some input into Ari's upbringing. Might be in administration, might be high in the bureau by now, maybe sitting in Peterson's chair, who knows? Now, I'm not that person. But Ari's following her predecessor's program, following her notes. It's a dangerous course for her. If Ari hasn't the perspective to figure that out, to figure me out, it's very dangerous. Not because I wish her harm, because I can't help it. I have ties I can't shed. I don't want to hurt her, Grant.
Is there a question of it? It was too much to say. Ari had sworn there was no monitoring, but that was only the truth she wished were so. Her capabilities were another story. Ari would lie by telling what she wished instead of what she would do. Ari had confessed that to him, manipulative in that admission as in anything else she did.
Never take me for simple, in any sense. No, he answered Grant, not by anything I want. Are you listening, Ari? Do you hear what I'm saying?
Sorry, I'm going to do that with proper emphasis because there's a combination of him talking followed right by him doing thought speech.
No, he answered Grant, not by anything I want. Are you listening, Ari? Do you hear what I'm saying?
Message, the minder said, walking Art, Jesus.
Message, the minder said, waking Ari out of sleep and waking Florian. Coded private, base 3.
Gerard. Gerard was in Novgorod, or had been when she went to sleep.
Damn,
she said, and rolled out of bed and searched for her slippers and her robe.
Shall I get up, Sarah?
Go back to sleep, she said. It's just Gerard going through the overhead. What else did I expect? Probably one from Dennis, too.
She found one slipper and the other as she put her arms into the sleeves, found the sashes and lapped them.
A little light, she said. Damn it, Minder. 8 seconds. On in the hall.
The room light came up a little, enough to see her way to the door, while, a backward glance, Florian pushed the covers over his head and burrowed into the dark. 8 seconds. She opened the door to the outside, blinking in brighter light, rubbing her eyes as the light faded behind her. She shut the door and saw Catelyn in the hall, in her nightrobe, her hair loose.
Back to bed, she told Catelyn. Just Gerard.
Catelyn vanished. She wanted a cup of something warm, but she was not about to rouse either of them. They had worked themselves to exhaustion getting Justin packed and upstairs before the rest of house security could get at Justin's belongings or Justin's notes, and getting enough essentials through the residency scanners to give them a choice of clothing and the basics for breakfast, and to put their working notes into their hands again. After which, she reckoned, Justin might be a good deal happier. Gerard certainly would not be. She went into her office, tucked up in the chair, and said, Minder, message. I'm alone.
Message, base 3 to base... Message, base 3 to base 1.
Ari, this is Gerard.
All right. Who else?
Aban's flying down with this tape, and flying back again tonight. He'll probably be on his way back to the airport by the time the system's alerted you. I can't afford this time. He can't. But I expect you know what's got me upset.
3 guesses, Uncle Gerard? Is this about the dance? Or have you heard your niece's latest?
I'm terribly worried, Ari. I've made multiple tries at recording this message. The first one wasn't polite. But I think I can understand at least the reasons behind your reasons. I'm not going to yell at you. Isn't that what you always used to say? If you're going to yell at me, Uncle Gerard, I'm not going to listen. We're both too old for that, and this is much too important for temper to get into it. So please, listen to this all the way through. It's ephemeral in the system unless you capture and copy, which you may do. If you do, I leave it to your discretion whether to send it to archive, but I advise otherwise for reasons which may occur to you. This message is queued only to Base 1. Unless I am dangerously mistaken, that will assure you are the only recipient. There's been another bombing. You may have heard.
Damn, no.
Major restaurant. 5 dead, 19 injured. New Year's Day crowds. That's what we're dealing with. Lunatics, Ari. People who don't care about their targets. Let me go through this point by point, as logically as I can, why what you've done regarding young Warwick isn't advisable. I advised you, in the first place, against coming to Novgorod. I foresaw a press furor that could well lead to more bombings, and the public is damn tense. Putting up with it, surviving, but ready to find a focus for their problems, and I don't want that blood on you, understand? Certainly, we don't need to make you a center of controversy. Your suggestion to lend enforcement and surveillance help under Reseune's aegis is a damned fine one. I'm ashamed not to have thought of the means. Novgorod city government's touchy and suspicious of anything that massive with Reseune's stamp on it, but they're desperate, and that gives them an alternative to the several other routes they don't want to go. They don't want the precedent of calling on the regular military. They don't have the funds to contract more personnel. Resume security in the subways is bound to be a target, but no sitting target either, and we can muster enough to handle it. Borrow the transport and the weapons from the military at a level where Novgorod doesn't have to be acutely aware of that connection. Shore up Jacques, too. The armed forces are chafing at what they call a do-nothing policy across the board. Success at something, success at anything, would make the whole administration of Union look a damned sight better. Which brings up another point, Ari. One I'm no happier talking about than you can imagine. But you and I both know that I'm on the downward slide.
Pity, Uncle Gerard? Shame on you.
Just decharge the situation and listen to me. I want you to start thinking clearly about what in hell you're going to do when I die, because I can assure you your enemies are planning for it. Khalid is beyond the 2-year rule. He could challenge Jacques again now. He could, but he hasn't filed. The centrists are nominally backing Jacques. They're scared of Khalid. He's not someone they can control, and Corain in particular sees Khalid as a clear danger to himself, someone who'd like to take the helm from him. And Corain's no young man any longer. Khalid calls Corain a tired old grandfather. Behind closed doors, but that kind of thing gets passed along in private circles. Me, he calls a dead man. Not particularly pleasant, but I'm getting used to the idea. He doesn't know how right he is.
My God, Uncle Gerard, what a view of things.
Look at Council, Ari. Catherine Lau's almost my age. That's your most valuable ally besides Harad and myself. I'm going. Jacques is a very weak figure, and Gorodin's grooming a replacement in the senior end of the Admiralty Board in a man named Sperlin. Able, but very middle of the spectrum, very strictly the interests of his own bureau, blow anyone else. Are you following this?
Too well. I'm ahead of you.
I made a terrible mistake, Ari, when I moved against Warwick without consulting you. We crossed one another, and to your damage. I made a further mistake when I didn't level with you then. Now I have reason to suspect you've passed at least my base.
Oh, dear.
And possibly Dennis's as well. Either that, or you have an uncanny timing. I confess that threw me. I didn't know then what to do. I'm old, and I'm sick, and I'm scared, Ari. But I'm not going to get maudlin.
Just in that very bright mind of yours, you should realize that your uncles have human weaknesses. I should have taken immediate measures I failed to take. When I was younger, I might have done better, but I'm not sure I would have. Doubts like that, you understand, are the bane of any reasoning mind. Do I not act because I see too much and the choices are too wide, or because I just can't make a choice? I'm making one now. A desperate one. I'm laying out the truth for you. Jordan Warwick is in direct contact with a man named McCabe in Air Systems Maintenance, who has direct links to Mikhail Corrain's office. I'm appending the entire report into Base 1. You're supposed to have put all the security reports into house systems, Uncle Gerard. This is totally new. How much else have you held out? Along with all our current files on planet security, it's quite a mass of information. Suffice it to say, quite honestly, Warwick is repeating an old pattern. You'll find in there a transcript from a meeting of Warwick with Secretary of Defense Liu back in Gorodin's administration, a very secret transcript that never came out at the hearings. Warwick was dealing, right before your predecessor's death, for his transfer out to Fargon and all that goes with it. Warwick was discovered in his scheme. It collapsed. Everything went up in smoke. Ari caught him dealing with Corrain, and I imagine Ari told him the truth of what was going on with his son. Jordan Warwick saw that tape. I can attest to that. Exactly what his professional skills are capable of making out of it, with his own knowledge of his son, I don't know. But I know, young Warwick knows. But I know, young Warwick knows, and I'm damn sure Jordan Warwick knows. Ugh. Let's try this again. Jordan Warwick saw that tape. I can attest to that. Exactly what his professional skills are capable of making out of it with his own knowledge of his son, I don't know. But I know, young Warwick knows, and I'm damn sure Jordan Warwick knows, that it was more than sexual gymnastics and more than a blackmail trip. He knew at that point that, A, Dennis and I wouldn't let him get his son back in his hands to work with, and B, Ari had been working on him for a number of sessions he couldn't estimate. In Jordan Warwick's place, what would you conclude? My God, Gerard. Jordan Warwick is very well aware of his son's association with you. We've monitored very closely to know what he does know. And what he can see is his son increasingly involved with you, with more and more to lose in any accident to you. That part of what you've done is instinctively correct, Ari. I tried to prevent it in the first place, afraid you were being an adolescent about the matter, but somewhere in the flux your instincts are still quite true. And now I remember, as old men will, that Ari was very much the same. So I rely on that. And I warn you, Jordan has never trusted his son. Justin has never understood his father. Justin is an idealist and an honest man, and as such he is very useful as an instrument. But he is vulnerable to his father, and his father is your implacable enemy, your enemy on principle, your enemy in his opposition to Reseune and all it stands for. I worry less about your having sex with this man than about your public defense of him, your stripping away the political isolation we've placed him in. We've kept him powerless to harm you. That you might sleep with him is, at this point, an inconsequence. If it would cure the sexual infatuation, I would be delighted. But bringing this man into prominence in Reseune is deadly. Let me go afield a moment. I know you're able to compass this interconnection of facts. Gorodin's medical reports look worse than mine. I don't know about Lau's. I figure that I have, granted nothing goes catastrophically wrong, maybe this year in tolerable health. After that, Lynch is going to have to take more and more of the operations and leave me the decision-making, which I plan to make you privy to, along with Dennis. What will happen when I die? If I can prevail on my brother to leave Reseune, I'll appoint him proxy and he can stand for election. If Dennis is not taking my death well. I haven't thanked you properly for your vote of confidence in me. Frankly, I'm not sure what the proper response is to finding out I'll be replicated. A little flattered, I suppose, not exactly personally involved, except as it consoles Dennis. I'm sure I won't know personally. I'm not even sure that it's true, or that I'm that important, although Dennis is, and in the context of my value to him, I can well see there might be a point to it. But if it is true, for God's sake, don't make it public. The public can accept the entity you call the cute kid. But I was always a sullen brat. Your predecessor would have told you that. And I'm sure you can think what kind of furor it would stir up if my enemies could look forward to another round with Gerard and I suppose Justin does know what you intend. He's altogether too close to your affairs, and I hope to hell he hasn't gotten that word to Jordan, because if he has, it's in Corrain's office by now, and I can about swear that will be exactly the route. I don't want Dennis to take guardianship of my replicate. Give that job to Yanni. He's at least as hard-headed as our father was, and I really want Dennis in Novgorod, in office, and on the job, if any force can move him. You're not able to take Reseune administration. You'll be at most 20, and it needs a much more experienced hand. The logical candidate to administer Reseune is Yanni Schwartz. But you must above all start taking a more public role and establishing a more professional image. You have to stand for that seat in your own right, at the right time. But don't count on your enemies standing still for that day. Khalid, I'm sure, has never forgotten what you and I did to him. I'm virtually certain, but I can't prove, that there is some very vague linkage among the Paxers, the Rocher Party, the abolitionists, and some allegedly respectable elements in the centrist party, some of which links go perhaps very high indeed. I don't say that Khalid is bombing subways. I do think that he's prepared to use the whole issue of your existence and the Paxer movement against you, the fear of Reseune's power, all of that. The moment I'm dead, I figure there'll not only be the election in science, but Khalid will challenge Jacques. We're caught in a situation in this. We're not enthusiastic about Gorodin's man Sperlin. Gorodin's health won't let him run again. Lou is disaffected, a bitter man. We're pressing Jacques to resign now and appoint Sperlin as proxy. He sees this as an expansionist plot. Correctly. But he doesn't admit that he can't beat Khalid again, and he won't look at his own polls that show him slipping badly. A case either of a man being pressured by Corrain to hold on in hopes of a change in the polls, or a man being a fool. Corrain tells me privately that he's urged Jacques to step down. He says Jacques refuses, that Jacques privately resents the label as a seat-warmer and a mouthpiece for Gorodin. Jacques is determined to hold the office in his own right after Gorodin dies. A case of one man's vanity impinging on Union's future. What I'm afraid is going to happen is the following. 2 elections going, and no knowing how Gorodin's health will be. And in the wake of media interest in my death, and Dennis's succession to the seat, that's precisely when I'm afraid Jordan Warwick is going to break his silence and come up with charges of his own, one of which is very likely going to be a claim of his own innocence, and the claim that I blackmailed him into accepting blame for Ari's death. I think you can see the mess you're about to create in rehabilitating his son. I hope you can see it. Your predecessor wouldn't fail me in this. God, dear God, is he innocent? There's no way in hell Jordan Warwick can testify or be questioned without a major change in the law. He can make charges with the same immunity that he has in keeping silent. He can say anything. And this is a man who's waited 2 decades for this chance, who will have his chance now because we gave up our chance to have linked him to the Paxers. We still can, if you're willing to use your head. I'm afraid it wouldn't win you, young I'm afraid it wouldn't win you, young Warwick's gratitude. But then again, you're much cleverer than I am, young Sarah, and maybe you can navigate those rocks. You have your predecessor's notes in Justin Warwick's case. You have run an intervention on him, I very much suspect, of what sort I will not speculate. I only know that the gesture he made at the party last night would once have been impossible for him. Having had him under probe a number of times, I know him and I know the nature of his problems, only some of which stem from that session with your predecessor. Damn you, Gerard.
Not to stand in the way of young love, Ari, sweet, but Justin's father put a damned heavy load on him. If you've got Ari's notes, you know that. You count yourself expert enough to take on a case Petros and Gustav won't touch. I'll trust you can add up the stresses on Justin Warwick and figure out what's going on with him. And you can add up the stresses that will result if he hears his father claim he was framed and unjustly treated. I'm at the point where I have to surrender a good many things to young hands. I thought that, frankly, I could rid you of a very unpleasant decision. You've appropriated it to yourself by your maneuvers to forestall me and to prevent me from discrediting Jordan Warwick. I neither beg nor plead with you at this point. I'm accustomed to being the villain in the family. I have no objection to bowing out in that role. If you would care to turn your back in the affair of Jordan Warwick, I could foresee that you could turn proof of his activities to your considerable personal advantage in dealing with Justin Warwick. I'm sure you understand me. If you decide on that course, you have only to call on me. You assuredly know now why I have taken extreme precaution to prevent this tape from seeing archives. It's potentially deadly. Never mind my reputation. Your own safety is in question, and if you use that famous wit of yours, you will look to that to the exclusion of all else. Above all, keep power out of the hands of people you would want to protect. Out of 133 years of living, love, that's the highest wisdom I can come to. I'll keep you posted. Aban may make many of these flights. I don't trust regular communications. Don't you. Above all, take this for a storm warning. I'm taking excellent care of myself. I've given up my few vices for your sake to buy you time. Remember my offer. Position yourself carefully, and don't be careless with your associates. Justice, guilt, and innocence are irrelevant. Motivation and opportunity are the things you have to watch. Nothing else has any validity. End it. She sat still a long while. "Log off," she said finally, and got back up and went to the bedroom. Florian waked when she came in, or had never been asleep. She got in beneath the covers, and stared into the dark. "Is there trouble, Sirrah?" "Just Gerard," she said, and rolled over and put her arm around him, burrowed down against his shoulder, smothering the anger, fighting it with all she had. "God. Florian, do something, will you?" And that is the end of today. For today. Whatever.
So yeah, things are rolling in a big way. So much of this book is politics. A bunch of the sequel is politics too, but it's a bit different. It's one of the things I really like about CJ Cherryh is she can be giving you a story that's basically really laconic and slow-paced and methodical until you realize, oh, you've been duped into thinking it's methodical, and actually she's been giving you all the context you're going to need to understand just how crazy things are about to get when you hit the climax. And we're getting there now. Her books tend to come together aggressively towards the end. I've mentioned this phenomenon before. Anyway, I will almost definitely have to split the last chapter in half. So the penultimate the penultimate episode will be tomorrow. Probably not the final one. I am still settled on what I am now pretty settled on what I'm going to do right after this one. I'm going to do a gap and read a different book between Cyteen and its immediate sequel, which is entitled Regenesis. I will reveal more about what that will be when we get there. The name, I think, will be appropriate. Otherwise, it is virtually nothing like Cyteen. So. It'll be a little breath. It's not that short, but it's not that long. It's not terribly long. But it'll be a little breath, probably a month or two. Anyway, that's about it. That's it for today. So yeah, if anybody wants digital copies of, and again, unedited, so gaps and flubbery is all present. Actually, Artemis is probably the most clean of the lot because there's none of the initial, like, 5-minute plus waiting time before the stream starts on any of those. With the exception possibly of installment 7. I think that one does. Because I guess I didn't record that one? Or the recording got botched with the manual record. Anyway. But other than that, those are secure, at least in audio format. I've got, they're secure and relatively cleaned up, so to speak, labeling-wise. I'm going to make sure I do a backup of everything from the last several months, just so that I have it. And, yeah. That's about it, I think. I'll just be watching my my YouTube channel like a hawk now for the next 3 months to make sure that there isn't another ding against me. Anyway, that does it for me for today. Stay safe, stay sane, be decent to each other, and I'll see you all tomorrow.